Welcome back to BravoBricks. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a galaxy far, far away to take an even closer look at the incredible and controversial LEGO Star Wars Diorama collection than ever before. These sets have captured iconic moments from the prequel, Phantom Menace, and that's the only prequel movie covered, and all three original Star Wars movies, offering both a fantastic building experience and stunning display pieces at really mixed, shall we say, pricing. Each diorama set includes a detailed scene from a Star Wars movie, a black base that acts as a frame for the scene, and a quote from said scene. Now, each black base also included what I call vent pieces for added styling to break up the monotonous black bars all around the sides, and some of the quotes were well chosen, others were kind of strange choices. Much like Obi-Wan facing General Grievous, let's drop right in.
Hello there.
Before we could talk about the diorama sets, we need to acknowledge that this is a retrospective. We need to look way back in order to fully understand the LEGO Star Wars dioramas. The first time LEGO attempted to create a toy or product for both children and adults was actually in the 1960s with the scale model line, an early architecture type line of products. The idea of the scale model line never really caught on. However, this does not hide the fact that the LEGO Group is ahead of its time. They can see even then that there's a market for toys in an adult world. Flash forward many years, and many more attempts to get the adult market captured, and we see the next big leap in the adult toy market from the Danish brand. Cafe Corner comes out in 2007, and LEGO Ideas, or more accurately its predecessor called LEGO Cusco, started in the following years. There had been adult-oriented sets before, of course, example the LEGO Star Wars UCS sets, some larger Technic models, but the mid-2000s is where adults started to either look at LEGO for the first time or started to return to their favorite childhood toy. They realized that not only did they grow up, but LEGO grew up as well. Starting in January 2013, LEGO merged its advanced Technique models into the Creator line under a new sub-theme called Creator Expert, with the very first release being 10233 Horizon Express, marketed as a 14+ set. This continued successfully with more advanced techniques being introduced over time. Time goes on, adult sales reached a plateau, and it was time for the next big step.
Has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus.
Coronavirus.
There are fears of rapidly spreading virus.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, people were spending more time at home than ever before. Adults sought out new ways to occupy themselves and new places to put their money now that they were spending less on commuting, going out, enjoying something like going to the movie theater. Board games that were stashed in the basement that hadn't been touched in years, puzzles that were received for Christmas 5 years ago that had yet to be touched, painting, drawing, tactile pastimes like crochet, and whipped coffee making. Yeah, that was a weird one. LEGO likely had this campaign planned long before a global pandemic, but the timing could not have been more perfect for them. LEGO launches the Adults Welcome marketing campaign in 2020. This would introduce the very first set of LEGO products that were not intended for kids. LEGO is essentially marketing to adults, specifically adults that normally wouldn't buy LEGO. They've always had a few sets marketed towards adults, as mentioned before, but this would be the boldest example of their commitment to the adult market yet. So how did the campaign go? Well, Adults Welcome was a huge and is a huge success. LEGO's sales and revenue have grown significantly since the launch of the Adults Welcome campaign. In 2021 alone, LEGO's revenue increased 27% compared to the previous year, and in 2020 it grew by another 17%. This growth is, in part, attributed to the increased popularity of adult-oriented LEGO sets. Now, LEGO's been outgrowing the market by 10 percentage points each year, consistently gaining market share over its competitors. In comes an even more perfect storm. Adults Welcome meet Star Wars. The fan base known for forking over any amount of money for a product with Star Wars slapped on the box. LEGO Star Wars had already proven to be a massive partnership for both the Star Wars IP and LEGO. In walks the brand new LEGO Star Wars Diorama line, a collection of sets designed to be displayed, not played with, and focused exclusively on the adult market, with their new Adults Welcome campaign driving it towards the older market, or the older demographic in the market. First and foremost, these diorama sets were not designed with play in mind. Now, there is a play feature here and there, but including the word diorama in the title, tells us right off the bat that these are not your average Star Wars sets. 2 of the 6 dioramas made don't even include minifigures, that being the Death Star Trench Run and the Mos Espa Podrace set. The diorama sets were and are a great mix of advanced building techniques in a relatively cheap form factor. Now, when I say cheap, I mean under $100 US. Each of these sets is marketed and advertised as 18 plus, making them more appealing to older audiences and more advanced builders. However, the price per piece ratio doesn't always work out in favor of the consumer. The diorama series is really something special and something we're very excited about, says Jens Kronwald Fredrickson, LEGO Star Wars design director. The models are built on a frame. On the frame, there's a small printed plaque with a famous phrase from that particular movie scene. As these models are intended for adults, we can use relatively complicated building techniques, and by that, take the detail level a bit higher than our regular play-themed models, said Fredrickson, who's worked on LEGO Star Wars since the very first sets were created in 1999. These are our first dioramas, and we've already created a lot of prototypes for more potential dioramas to come in the future. I'll be going over these sets in order that they were released rather than canonically. Welcome to the LEGO Star Wars Diorama Retrospective. Up first, we have 75329 Death Star Trench Run Diorama. The movie that this comes from is Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope. The release date was April 26, 2022, and was on the shelves until December of 2023 with a shelf life of 1 year, 8 months, which is going to be the average lifespan for all of these diorama sets. The piece count was 665 pieces and came in at $60, $59.99. That was the original MSRP. However, we'll find out later that this was one of many sets affected by a COVID price hike. The original price per part ratio is about 9 cents. The designer credited on Brickset is someone named J.M.E. Wheeler. I'm just going to call him Jim Wheeler. I have no idea if that's the right way you say it, but Jim Wheeler, known also for some other great Star Wars sets, includes the Endor Speeder Chase diorama. In their notes on the set, the designer states, "This was my first Star Wars set. It was really nice getting to do a microscale build. It's one of my favorite disciplines to work in, and it really allows you to look at elements in a brand new way. I worked really hard to try and make sure the background doesn't look completely random. I wanted to make each component look as though it has some purpose. This diorama captures the thrilling climax of A New Hope, where Luke Skywalker, with guidance from the Force, makes the impossible shot to destroy the Death Star." Oh yeah, spoilers ahead. So what's included? The set features a detailed recreation of the Death Star's trench surface, including intricate greebling and weapon emplacements. It comes with brick-built models of Luke Skywalker's X-Wing, Darth Vader's TIE Advanced, and 2 standard TIE Fighters, all in a forced perspective, small size to enhance the sense of scale for the set. Each one is held up in a dynamic pose with a clear piece to try and trick the eyes into thinking that they're flying through the Death Star trenches. The trench itself is accomplished through greebling, or using lots of pieces in unconventional ways to depict a texture, and there's one major cannon that swivels around to follow Luke in his X-Wing, which features an R2-D2 printed tile. All the ships included here are built in such a small scale that accomplishing an iconic shape is all the more impressive on the designer's side. A printed tile with Darth Vader's line, "The Force is strong with this one," is included to complete the display. It's a great choice for a quote, and it's iconically Star Wars and happens during the scene. The inclusion of a quote plaque in these sets is a great way to elevate the overall feel of the diorama, almost like a plaque next to an exhibit at a museum explaining what we're looking at. I much prefer these quote plaques over the typical Ultimate Collector Series plaque stands that give out mostly useless information. Plus, it's a printed tile, not a sticker, so double points. The trench quickly became popular for its dynamic composition and faithful representation of the movie scene in a compact form. This also marked the cheapest diorama set to release at $60 pre-COVID hike, which then brought the set up to $70 MSRP. However, it was regularly on sale at major retailers for around $50 or less, making this one even more appealing. And if you haven't seen Light and Magic, the documentary on Disney Plus, I highly recommend you check out and see how they created this scene as well as many others in real life. Really fascinating stuff. The LEGO Death Star Trench Run diorama ranks pretty high among the list of dioramas, both for its small entry-level price, and great display value. Even though it's retired now, you can still find it online roughly for MSRP, which could say something about either current demand or just the sheer number of sets that they produced in this line. Potentially, it could say something about the overall demand for a diorama set, but I think that it's great. So if you don't have it and you want a good way to display the trench run, this is a solid set. Next on our list is 75330 Dagobah Jedi Training Diorama. The movie it comes from is Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back Episode 5. The release date was April 26, 2022, as you'll find with the first 3 dioramas, all of them released on the same day, and they all retired around the same time as well. The piece count is exactly 1,000 pieces. The original MSRP was $79.99. The price per part ratio was about 8 cents, and there were 2 minifigures, potentially 3, depending on how you consider a droid. So we've got 2 minifigures and a droid. This set transports us to the swampy planet of Dagobah, where Luke Skywalker seeks out the legendary Jedi Master Yoda for training as seen in Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. So what is included? Exactly 1,000 pieces. This diorama showcases Yoda's hut, constructed with lots of attention to detail, including the gnarled and tangled swamp roots and mud brick appearance of Yoda's homestead. A plaque with Yoda's words, "Do or do not, there is no try." I'm very sorry if that was offensive to you, is featured on the front of the set. One major critique is a step of the instructions where you're asked to place 39 1x1 green pieces down on one page, and then right after that, you're asked to put 177 1x1 green tiles on the next. Some people found this step exhausting, but I actually felt like this was very therapeutic, and I'm not usually one to enjoy repetitive instructions. There was something about putting 1x1 tiles over and over again in a line that just kind of felt nice. Yoda's hut is less than minifigure scale, but is the most screen accurate shape and overall look of this hut that we've ever gotten. They've even managed to capture his little window up here with a car fender piece. They use a whole range of tan and green colors to shape Yoda's hut. There's roots and swamp trees, that's the technical term by the way. Along the backside we can even see a lavish interior. Not really. It's kind of a sparse interior, but at this scale it probably would have been too difficult to get any more details that made sense at this level. We do, however, get a bowl of root leaf stew and a hiding place for a lightsaber. As stated before, it released on April 26, 2022 and retired November 25th, 2023. Now it's important to note that the retirement date does not mean that they're off the shelves, it just means that LEGO is no longer producing any more from that point onwards. So it could have been on the shelf in December or January the next year, it just depends on how popular it is in that area. This set was designed by Jason Zapantis and the graphics were done by Martin Zink. Jason Zapantis is known for Obi-Wan Starfighter from 2022, as well as the Mandalorian Fang Fighter vs. TIE Interceptor set from 2023 from the TV show The Mandalorian. The Jedi Training Diorama was his only diorama design. It generally follows the same size as the other dioramas. While the original MSRP was $79.99, that price was increased, unfortunately, during the famed COVID hike to $89.99, though it was already frequently on sale, so the COVID spike was all the more confusing on this one. The perceived value of 75330 Dagobah Jedi Training Diorama is a more, shall we say, subjective aspect. Some, like me, found the price point mildly reasonable for a display piece that was aimed at adults, particularly considering the 1,000-piece count. Others, like my first wife, felt that the set might be slightly overpriced and that the money should go towards getting a house instead of living in the streets. She probably felt this way because of the tedious build experience associated with the swamp and the relatively compact size of the finished model. I tell her all the time that size isn't everything, but ultimately the value proposition of the Dagobah Jedi Training Diorama appears to hinge on your appreciation for the set's accuracy, level of detail, and its place within the broader context of the LEGO Star Wars Diorama collection. Now, for me personally, this one ranks pretty high. However, I completely understand why anyone would think that this is overpriced. It's still pretty small, relatively speaking, for what you can buy at $100 or close to $100. So yeah, I understand why people might think that this one is a little bit overpriced. But for me, this one is closer to what I would want to spend. I recognize that it's not a one-to-one minifigure scale of the swamp, but you know instantly what the scene is when it's placed on a shelf, especially when you have Luke positioned upside down in the training position. The extensive use of 1x1 tiles for the swamp, according to the designers, was a deliberate attempt to achieve the most realistic water effect possible in LEGO bricks. Despite acknowledging the potential for build fatigue due to the sheer number of these small elements, the designers felt that larger tiles, which do exist in the same swampy green color, would have resulted in an undesirable green floor appearance rather than the rippling texture of swamp water. Now, I don't have those pieces lying around, so I can't confirm or deny the floor look, but I'll take their word for it. You could pretty frequently find this set on sale at major retailers for about $70, making the price to piece ratio appealing. The real value to me comes in the form of price to stuff and whether or not you feel like you've gotten your money's worth. And there's no play features in this set, but you do get a pretty sophisticated looking build, so there's definitely some positives to take away. Keeping with the trend of dioramas, they use many small pieces, possibly skewing the price to part ratio. But again, please don't focus on that too much. Focus on price to stuff. Do you feel like you're being robbed? Do you feel like you're getting a good value for your money? And as always, you can always wait on sales. You can wait on double VIP weekend. You can wait on a gift with purchase that you really like to try and offset that initial cost. Next on our list is LEGO Set 75339 Death Star Trash Compactor Diorama. This comes to us from Star Wars A New Hope. It was released on April 26, 2022 and contains 802 pieces. MSRP was $89.99 and this was a retail exclusive for Walmart or Wally World. The price per part ratio was about 11 cents. One thing's for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner. Now, this is arguably the most controversial LEGO Star Wars diorama that we've looked at yet. Now, what is included for your $90? Well, you get an iconic scene from A New Hope with a neat play feature. You get 5 minifigures plus R2-D2, making this the third diorama to feature R2-D2 in some way, shape, or form. This interactive diorama features moving walls that can be squeezed closer together, replicating being crushed by the walls of the compactor as it closes in. It includes minifigures of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo in exclusive Stormtrooper disguises. We also get Princess Leia in her white dress, Chewbacca with a normally proportioned booty, and the two droids C-3PO and R2-D2. The level of detail in the trash and the grimy look of the compactor walls are incredibly screen accurate, down to the lights on the wall in the exact spot and the right number of lights. A quote plaque up front reads Han Solo's memorable line from the scene, "One thing's for sure, we're all going to be a lot thinner. Oh Han, if only it were that simple to get thinner." There is the hint of the trash creature with his head poking out. I don't think it's a very effective representation of the creature at this scale. I think it was very poorly done. There's a control panel around the back where you're intended to put R2 and C-3PO. Unfortunately, nothing else back there is complete or finished looking, so it almost begs the question on whether or not this section and the figures were thrown in last minute to justify the price that had already been predetermined for the set. Now, the walls and the floor are all tiled off in very different colors to make the build process feel less repetitive than it looks. As stated before, this released in April 26, 2022 and was retired in November 27, 2023, matching about the same shelf life as the other dioramas we've seen so far. The lead designer of this set was not information that I could personally find with my high-level research skills, so I will attribute the set to the creative director of LEGO Star Wars, Jens Kronwald Fredrickson. The set stood out on the shelf for its play feature, allowing builders and collectors to recreate the iconic squeezing moment that we see in A New Hope. The inclusion of all 6 minifigures that we know so well to be in Star Wars is probably another big selling point, especially with the 2 exclusive minifigures with Han Solo and Luke Skywalker in exclusive torso and leg prints for Stormtrooper costumes. Unlike the other 2 LEGO Star Wars dioramas released at the time, the price of this set was not raised during the COVID price hike, likely because it was already too much money and the market didn't take too kindly to it. If you had laid out all 3 dioramas that had released up to this point in a row, and you told a Star Wars fan or really anybody that liked LEGO to pick out 2 of them, I can guarantee you that the trash compactor would have been picked last each time. Whether that's because of the price per piece, or just the price in general, or just the appeal of a trash can that shrinks. This set, since retirement, has not appreciated more than $3 over asking price, revealing just how few people wanted this particular scene, or, the more likely case, just how overpriced the set was. The king of LEGO YouTube, BravoBricks himself, says it best in his video title for the review: "Please help me understand the price." Unfortunately, Jang, I can't help you understand the price. This LEGO set to me felt like an example of just how far the company could push and stretch the adult dollar at this scale, and because the Star Wars IP is attached to it, people, like me, are still going to buy it. I love the play feature, I love the figures, and I like the accurate look of the scene, but I didn't pay full price because I don't think it's worth the $90 retail price. I feel bad for anybody that forked over that much money for the set, and it ranks really low on my list, but the play feature is killer. Literally. Alright, that is it for the initial wave of LEGO Star Wars dioramas. They must have proven somewhat popular or profitable for LEGO because they continued to make them in 2 more waves. The next wave would include 2 new sets, both from the original Star Wars movies, and the last wave only including 1 diorama set featuring a set from everyone's favorite movie of all time, The Phantom Menace. But for now, let's take a closer look at the second wave of diorama sets, which includes 2 new entries. These sets were both released in mid-2023 during Star Wars month, the month of May, because May, the Force be with you, and May, Bo-Katan take a seat right on my face. Number 4, Emperor's Throne Room Diorama. The movie that this comes from is Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Episode 6. The release date for this one was May 1st, 2023, with a piece count of 807 and the original MSRP of $99.99. And the price per part ratio comes out to about 12 cents per piece. The original MSRP of $99.99 will not go up because of a COVID price hike. The COVID price hike only applied to 2 of the first 3 initial dioramas, and luckily after this we don't have any more COVID price hikes. However, we may see a tariff price hike here in the future on Star Wars sets, or just sets in general. Thanks, Obama. This set invites you to experience the dramatic climax of the original trilogy with the Emperor's Throne Room diorama, where Luke Skywalker confronts Darth Vader and the sinister Emperor Palpatine. What is included? Egregious pricing. That's what's included. This is so far the worst price to part ratio that we've seen in the diorama series, and feels the most like robbery out of the ones that we've looked at so far. Even considering the trash compactor, I feel like this is even less of a good value. We get 3 minifigures in this set: Darth Vader, Carol Baskins, and Luke Skywalker, with Luke being the only exclusive figure present here. The set meticulously recreates the Emperor's throne room aboard the second Death Star. It features a circular window element that is not clicked in anywhere and is just resting against pieces using tension that surprisingly works well. The Emperor's rotating throne is a key feature. Emperor Palpatine does come with his signature Sith lightning and a special spot down below to hide them away when it's not lightning time. This plaque displays Luke's words, "I am a Jedi, like my father before me," along with a 40th anniversary logo for Return of the Jedi. The quote-unquote stage for the action to happen on is elevated with an almost hollow area underneath, which matches the look of the set in the movie. It comes with 2 well-done display consoles here at the front that look screen accurate to my eyes. The flooring is mostly tiled off except a few studs that are used to showcase and display the figures. I like the smooth look of the set, but I also appreciate when they include some studs, especially for action poses like this one here. And this one here. Ooh, and definitely this one here. The set released in May of 2023 and retired in December of 2024. This does still match the shelf life of all the dioramas that we've seen so far. This set was designed by Jackson Hughes, and in his brick set notes he talks about designing the set, his first ever set for the company. He says, "This was the first model I designed at the LEGO Group, and I was very excited to work on something so iconic. It was clear from the beginning of design that the big round window would be most difficult and the most critical part to get right. The flex tube solution presented itself pretty quickly, but it took a lot of fine-tuning to guarantee that no elements were being strained. I also built versions that used more Technic bars and clips or hinge elements, but flexible tubes were the way to go. Big thanks to Piasson for taking so many measurements of this part of the build. The throne was surprisingly difficult too. Because this model is for ages 18+, we had a great opportunity to make a really accurate advanced throne build that captured the unique, organic shape of the chair. This was challenging to do on such a compact scale, and at one point I had 20 different throne builds on my desk while trying to find one that worked. Jackson Hughes has gone on to design other iconic Star Wars sets, such as the brand new Onyx Cinder and the new massive C-3PO. The building instructions were done by Morten Lennart Sorensen. The graphic design came from Madison O'Neill, and the element design, the brand new Luke wig, is designed by Niels Milan Peterson. Even though it's been retired for about 5 months during the recording of this video, you can still find the set significantly under the retail price of $100. This one felt like the most repetitive build to me, even considering the crazy number of green pieces in the Yoda Swamp front yard. Now the windows and the frame are both incredibly repetitive along the backside, and the windows can be tricky to put together, but the spacing sorts itself out as you put them in, which is nice. It's iconic and fans will appreciate it, and finding it cheaper than $80 was not all that difficult, especially for someone like me that goes on Amazon, the first site when you wake up in the morning, you're like, all right, I gotta check my cart, see what's on sale. It's a darn shame that this costs so much at launch, but patience is key for those on a tighter budget, and that's for any LEGO set really, not just Star Wars. Now speaking of tight budgets, you've made it this far, hit that subscribe button to help me pay my child support. Next up, we have LEGO set 75353 Endor Speeder Chase Diorama. This comes from Star Wars Return of the Jedi. The release date for this set was May 1st, 2023, and the piece count comes in at 608, and the original MSRP, oh boy, $79.99, which brings us to a record-breaking price per part ratio of 13 cents. With this set, you can feel the rush of the Force Moon of Endor with the dynamic diorama capturing the thrilling speeder bike chase as you empty your wallets to pay $80 for partial trees and some grass. Alright, we're going to talk more about that price in a little bit, but first let's break down what's actually here. Well, you get 2 speeder bikes, one ridden by Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia. Are they lovers? Are they siblings? Are they both? And the other is ridden by a Boy Scout trooper. Transparent elements are used to create the illusion of speed and height as they maneuver through the brick-built partial trees and foliage of Endor. Now, the diorama includes minifigures of Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and their Endor outfits, as well as a scout trooper, all of which are exclusive. This quote, more than any other, feels like the odd one out. It seems like a really strange quote to use rather than something a little bit more meaningful or story impacting. But including this quote doesn't take away from the set, and I guess that's what matters. We get 2 partial trees that sell where we are decently well, and the trees aren't bad at all, they just cut off too soon, like a movie set would be. And I understand why it's cut off, it just feels like, to me at least, it hurts the overall value proposition for the set. What it really reminds me of is the scene that's right outside of Star Tours at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Luckily for us, there's a decent amount of fern elements here that litter the forest floor. There's some blue-green elements climbing the tree, as well as some leaf elements to show moss growing on the logs. Now, the inclusion of clear elements to elevate the bikes works well and gives the set a dynamic feel. There's movement here that is also apparent in the trench run, this set, and the next one on our list as well. Now, what makes this one different from the rest of the bunch is the lack of a backdrop. The other scenes we've gotten so far have distinctive backdrops, so this one ends up feeling less good in the presence department. For this reason, with the partial trees, makes this set feel less like a proper scene and more like a facade or an incomplete build. This set was designed by Jim Wheeler, who we know from earlier in this video as the designer of the Death Star Trench Run set, also the designer of the Ghost and Phantom 2. Clearly he has a knack for adult-focused Star Wars. Wheeler notes in his Bricklist notes that this set was a really nice break from the typical Star Wars gray. It was also a good fun opportunity for me to do an organic landscape, which has always been one of my favorite things to build for fun. Doing it for a set was challenging and required me to think about it in a very different way than if I were just doing it for myself. It was important to make sure that the set would be easy to interpret, especially given the amount of foliage involved. The timing of the set was really quite lucky as we had the opportunity to make the most of the new fern element, of which there are 24 in the set. They really helped to make the scene feel as much like the Moon of Endor as possible. Something notable that he said there was that it avoids the typical Star Wars gray. This to me is one of the more valid complaints about Star Wars. LEGO sets often play it safe and keep it gray. The building instructions were designed by Emil Sabi. This one retired in December 31st of 2024, matching the shelf life again as all the other dioramas we've seen before it, about a year and a half. A year and a half is a respectable time for a set to be on the shelf, but total units sold is not something that LEGO provides to the public, so we just kind of have to speculate on how well it sold. If it was on sale, it was for about $60, still feeling overpriced at about $20 under the original MSRP. There have been 8 renditions of the speeder bike from Endor, one of which being a micro speeder bike featured in the 2023 Star Wars Advent Calendar. This one featured in the set contains the most pieces ever used in an Endor speeder bike. The older ones, understandably, were geared towards a younger audience and had access to less piece types. This set leaves much to be desired and costs a ridiculous amount of money for what you're getting. The idea is absolutely there, right? An adult-geared Endor display set? Sign me up. Charge me too much and create a scene that feels like a shell of what it could be? I'm out. I enjoyed this set, much more once I built it, but the points mentioned before still stand. It costs way too much and can be found on deep discount even after retirement for under $50. Next on our list, we have the Mos Espa Podrace Diorama, set number 75380. The movie this comes from is Star Wars The Phantom Menace. Release date was May 1st, 2024. This is the only diorama set that is still on the market. It came with 718 pieces and came with a somewhat respectable but still a bit egregious $79.99 original MSRP. The price per part ratio comes in at about 11 cents. Remember, concentrate on the moment. Feel, don't think. Use your instincts. Qui-Gon Jinn. I do apologize again. This diorama takes us all the way back to the desert planet of Tatooine for the high-octane Mos Espa Podrace from The Phantom Menace. So what's included? This unique diorama features a brick-built model of Anakin Skywalker and his rival Sebulba's podracers in mid-race through Arch Canyon. Arch Canyon was a location on the Mos Espa Podrace circuit, and most races opted to travel over the Dune Sea instead of through Arch Canyon, though the Boonta Eve Classic did not. The podracers are mounted on transparent supports, giving a sense to them of speeding through the air. The backdrop includes details of the Tatooine landscape like sand and canyon walls. Good thing I don't have anything against sand. This was the second diorama to not include minifigures, as it is made at a smaller scale to where a minifigure would throw the whole feel of the set and the sense of scale off. It did, however, feature a printed tile with Qui-Gon Jinn's advice mentioned above. It also included a Star Wars Lego 25th anniversary brick with R2-D2 printed on it. The pod racers themselves are overall a little bit too fragile for my liking, but at this scale it would be incredibly demanding to think that it could be skinny and strong. That's why I personally prefer to be chunky and weak, the worst of both worlds. The rock wall and arch does look pretty good considering it's meant to replicate organic and naturally occurring rock formations, although it does use a lot of pieces overall just for the backdrop and the arch. This set was designed by Caesar Shores, who's worked on many LEGO sets, including the LEGO Ideas Treehouse, Nightmare Before Christmas set, and Jabba's Sail Barge, the new UCS version. According to Brickset.com, the graphics for the set were done by Martin F. I think the F stands for fun. There have been 6 total pod racing sets that have come before this one, with varying scales, but almost all of them fitting minifigures. As the first prequel trilogy diorama, this set was a significant addition to the collection, a fine addition to my collection, one might say. This set not only commemorates the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace, but it also commemorates 25 years of the LEGO Star Wars theme as a whole. Like I said before, this is the only one that's still on the market. It is not yet retired. However, if we take any considerations of what happened with the past sets, this set is likely to be retired at the end of 2025. It looks good overall, but the cost is still too much for what you're getting. It's fine on display, but the amount of pieces that went into the rocks, rather than perhaps something more dynamic like a brick-built explosion for one of the crashing pod racers, would have been a better choice in my opinion. The quote that comes with the set works really well, and I think that it was probably one of the better choices that they could have made. Luckily, I picked this one up used from the Orlando Brick Co. and paid a fraction of the cost, but the price tag trend still feels kinda icky here, continuing this overall trend of diorama sets being too much money. That finishes off our original 6 LEGO Star Wars diorama sets. Now before I finish the whole list off, there's some honorable mention diorama sets that aren't included in the main line of 6 sets, but they are still worth mentioning because they sort of fill the same purpose as the other Star Wars dioramas, just not in the same recognized wave or same format. First, we have the LEGO Darth Vader Meditation Chamber released in 2021. Though not called a diorama, it fits the same exact design and style made for the other 6 diorama sets, and this retired in December of 2022, but you can still find it for around $60 on US sites like eBay and whatnot. Next on our list was a Walmart exclusive of Gasgano. I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong, though I think you are an alien, so what are you going to do about it? And that was released in late 2024. The stock was incredibly limited and can only be purchased on the aftermarket. Now this one didn't even see Lego.com. This exclusively sold on Walmart's website, and it could be found online right now for about $70 to $80 new in box, though it is important to note this one did not come in a box. It came in kind of like a Ziploc bag, which is strange. Next, we have the LEGO Bespin Duel, and this set was originally produced as a Star Wars Celebration exclusive for the 2020 year. Due to the event being canceled by COVID, it was sold later on Lego.com and in Target shops in the US in very limited quantities. As a result of this, the price of the set is up to $150 for 295 pieces. For all you math people out there, that comes out to about 50 cents per piece. Now that we've looked at each diorama individually, let's compare and contrast them from a larger lens or from a step back. The collection of diorama sets spans across the original trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, and the prequel trilogy only gets one, and that would be The Phantom Menace, offering a diverse range of iconic moments with some serious underrepresentation from the prequels, and yes, even the sequels. 4 out of the 6 dioramas include minifigures, ranging from 3 to 6 per set. The Death Star Trash Compactor includes the most minifigures, allowing for a fuller representation of the scene, though 2 of the figures will remain hidden behind the backside of the set, kind of null and voiding the whole purpose of it. Let's talk display value. All of the dioramas are designed with display in mind, featuring a sleek black base and a printed tile with a relevant quote from the movie. Their relatively compact sizes make them easy to showcase individually or as part of a larger collection. I like to have mine on shelves in my office because I think they're compact enough for a shelf while also still showing a complete scene. Think Star Wars Lego set, but not spread out over a huge volume of space. The visual variety across the collection ensures that each diorama does stand out pretty well on their own, while still maintaining a cohesive aesthetic that looks really classy together. I recognize that this aesthetic is not for everyone. When it comes to display value, all of them are good. You will not find a display set or a diorama set that has a bad or poor display value. So let's talk overall price to part ratio. Now the price per part varies across the collection, ranging from about 8 cents to 13 cents. Generally, sets with more intricate details, unique elements, or a higher number of minifigures tend to have a slightly higher price per part. Taking a step back, none of these sets feel like you're getting what you pay for, especially if you're paying full price or live in a country where the price compared to the value of your dollar is so vastly off. I personally refuse to pay full price for any of the dioramas, and I'm glad that I waited. The Dagobah Jedi training diorama offers the lowest price per part, while the Endor speeder chase has the highest, likely placing it lower on most people's set lists. Even if it's one of the better looking ones in your opinion, you're still probably going to put it lower on the list because it costs so much money. The LEGO Star Wars Diorama Collection has been a fantastic addition to the LEGO Star Wars lineup. I think maybe it takes too much advantage of the fact that this is from the Adults Welcome marketing campaign. I like that all of these sets offer adult fans a way to celebrate their favorite moments from the saga through detailed and very displayable models that do look good. Yeah, the prices aren't great, but the potential for greatness is evident in each one. You cannot deny that each scene is easily recognizable. There's not one diorama set on here, on this list, that doesn't look accurate or match what the scene looks like. Each set captures the essence of its chosen scene with unique building techniques that feel good to build, for the most part. While the inclusion of minifigures vary, the focus on creating a visually striking and accurate representation of iconic Star Wars moments remains pretty consistent throughout the whole collection. And whether you're drawn to the action-packed sequences or the more character-driven scenes, there's likely a diorama in this collection that you either already have or want to have on display. Luckily for everybody, none of these sets have really appreciated all that much, except for the honorable mentions I mentioned towards the end of that list. So if you still want one, you could either buy it used for a significant discount or still buy it used and probably not overpay, depending on how late you're watching this video. So when are we getting more diorama sets? Because I feel like I'm Kylo Ren right now.
More! More!
As of the recording of this video, there are no announcements for future diorama sets, but it's worth mentioning, at least I believe it is, that the helmet series went through a kind of semi-retirement and then a revival, and that's got a very similar adult-focused vibe to it. They're intended for display, they're not intended for play, and maybe they just need a little bit of time off. Maybe that's what the diorama series needs. Take some time off, figure out what direction you want to go in, and I really hope that they stay away from the original 3 movies, because I think at this point we've seen what we need to see. Go to the prequels, do a couple sets there, and then, as much as it pains me to say for some of you, I do think that they should go to the sequels. There's a lot of potential for more scenes. None of the sequels were touched, and 2 of the prequel movies weren't touched yet either. Someone from the community that I'd like to highlight is BravoBricks on Instagram, who has a few dioramas for Star Wars that are worth checking out. What diorama scene would you like LEGO to work on next? Drop your suggestion in the comments below, and that's how I'll know that you made it all the way to the end. Personally, I really like Hoth, but I think it's time to see a diorama from something other than the main 3. That could even include TV shows like The Mandalorian or Endor. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. Happy Star Wars Day. May the Force be with you. See you next set. Bye-bye.